Welcome to IndieCapitol. I'm Pamela Nash, and this is Connie Lamothe. She's here to talk about your last 6 inches. So, your last 6 inches of what?
I know. It's got a kind of interesting title. I didn't choose it. It's actually a reference to an obituary.
Oh.
So, see, that's not even funny, is it? But it actually is a comedy, so.
And tell us a little bit about that project.
Well, this is a short film that's been done by a gentleman out in Winchester whose name is Wade Byard. And Wade actually has been writing screenplays for quite some time, but this is the first one that he's decided that he wants to produce and take the film festival circuit and that type of thing. And it's directed by a gentleman named Joe Durbin, and also, I should say, co-directed DP work by another gentleman whose name is Nick Matheson. And it's just a real cute short story about a woman who goes to Virginia from Florida because her father's passed away, and she's looking for information on him. And what she learns is that he was leading a double life, and that he had a whole other family in Virginia. He had a wife and grown children, and she, of course, herself is a bastard because her mother and her father were not married. So it's the story of her travels to Virginia, and really, really cutely done. Lots of very funny moments in it, and we're really excited about it.
And are we going to have a clip from that?
Yes, we are.
So we're going to take a look.
It's amazing the crude labels those who don't know you can apply to your name. I'm his daughter.
Your father was not Whitney White.
I have papers.
You take everything a person was and you boil it down to 6 inches.
I think we all knew that Dad had other women in his life.
I don't want her to know about our finances.
This is not about money.
Money is the binding factor in this fact.
Maybe it's time that love and understanding was. Honey, it means that we have the same father.
I miss Dad. He's dead.
I can't believe he's dead. Mr. White helped me with many civic projects.
Civic projects?
His life is much more than is contained in his last 6 inches.
So I want to ask you about Reunion.
Okay.
Which, by the way, was beautifully shot by
Thank you.
what Michael, is it
Tuthill.
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 Yeah, right. The cinematography was beautiful.
Thank you so much.
That film has a lot of emotional impact. And you directed that film, but you also acted in it.
Yes.
When every little facial expression is so important to the story, how do you direct yourself?
Oh. Well, I think there's a lot to when you know the story. Mm-hmm. I did not write the story, and actually, for the viewers who don't know, Reunion is actually a story that's taken from a story that appeared in Reader's Digest in the 1950s, which was called The Gold and Ivory Tablecloth. And coming to, looking at this whole script, being so familiar with it, it's just such a moving, amazing piece. And I'm really surprised it's never been done as a big, whoop-to-do full feature film. I'd love to do it as a full feature film.
Tell us a little bit about the story behind Reunion.
Well, it's actually the story of a couple that were involved, or they were in East Germany. And they knew that things were getting bad. And of course, this is before, obviously, the wall went down and what have you. But they knew things were getting bad, and they made a promise to each other that they should leave. But they couldn't do it together. They felt it was too risky. Excuse me. So what they did was they made a plan to put the wife on a train and send her to Switzerland. And the husband would come and meet her a year later. So she went. Well, the husband never came. So 30 some odd years into the future, she's now living in New York City. And there had been this tremendous snowstorm, and she's at a bus stop. Well, along comes a pastor who's new in town, and he offers for her to come inside his church. And he explains to her that the church is under repair, and because of the snowstorm, which was, you know, so violent and what have you, he had this cloth hanging on the wall to cover a hole. And when she looked at the cloth, she just became extremely emotional, and she broke down, and she said, "That's my cloth." And she said, "My husband gave me that cloth from 30 years prior." So she told him the story. Well, obviously, he got some information from her and agreed that at one point or another, he would return the cloth to her. So, long story short, there was a Christmas Eve service, which was mainly why he had the cloth there to cover that hole for this big service. And so at the end of the service, there was a man left in the pew crying, and the pastor went up to him, come to find out, he is the husband of the woman. And this is a true story. So, you know, it's just incredible to me that so many years later, a couple could be reunited through a church, a tablecloth, a pastor. You know, it's a miracle of God, really, and that's, of course, what the film's about.
I mean, ever since we got back from the church, you've been like 1,000 miles away. What's going on?
I know. The church. It's so daunting. Everyone's worked so hard. God's the one who's calling the shots. I mean, there's so much work to be done, and we only have so much time. Carl's a very nice man, but what if it takes longer than he thinks?
I think it's worse than I thought it was.
There ain't no way you're going to be able to have a service in here.
Just have faith. Now, can you do that?
Miracles happen all the time, right?
My name's Kevin Michaels.
All of our belongings were rolled into this club. I never saw my husband again.
God doesn't care where we worship him. In this place.
Do you consider yourself to be a Christian filmmaker?
Yes.
Okay, and tell us a little bit about what. Does that mean that you have to change your story to fit certain moral beliefs, or are you driven by your beliefs to write stories?
I would say definitely driven by my beliefs. You know, I really feel like there's so much out there, but I wanted to put something out there that had a really positive message. And so the films that I've done thus far have been that type of film. You know, the film before Reunion was Rosie's Miracle, and that was also a Christian film. And so they just have an encouraging, I wouldn't say that it's kind of like a Christian kind of point of view being kind of crammed down your throat,
right,
so to speak. It's light on that. But I do believe that it's about how God works in our lives and the miracles that, you know, are there because of Him. And so, you know, I just felt like that was kind of a word that I wanted to put out there.
So you would more describe your work as positive and uplifting rather than religious, per se?
Well, yes. And of course, I have a whole I have a problem with the whole term religious.
Oh, tell us about it.
Well, it's more, it's not, to me, religion is about, you know, you do things when, you say things when, it's kind of like a formality. And this is really more about just being a believer, more spiritual side of things, being a believer. And I think that for myself, I look at the book, the Bible itself, as, you know, that's the Word of God. I don't need to go to church or to practice a certain kind of religion in order to be a believer.
And nobody really needs to have any particular belief system to get that emotional connection that you have in Reunion, really.
Oh, no, absolutely not. I mean, you know, certainly I do know that there are non-believers, of course, who've watched it, but sit there and get choked up, and I've had many people tell me, "Oh, you moved me to tears with that one," you know, and I said, "Well, that's a good thing. I was doing my job then."
Well, I definitely think the cinematography reflects really well that emotional life of the film, and it is grand and it is beautiful, and the idea of meeting across decades is grand and beautiful.
Oh, absolutely.
And so I definitely praise you
Oh,
for your work.
Thank you so much. It's not just me, it was everybody involved. I don't want to take credit for all the great acting that was in that, and Michael's work, and I had a lot of good help.
So I want to ask you about The Driver. You wrote this film in 2005.
Right.
And now it's going into pre-production, is that right?
Well, let's just say that this project started out as my first project, and it's been a long haul.
Tell us about the journey, because filmmakers want to know.
Well, goodness gracious. I have to say that I sat down and I started writing this screenplay, and I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew it had a great story. And I was, you know, I was motivated to do it. I was really passionate about doing it. And so we got a screenplay going, and I brought in another writer, Michael Brennan, who's fabulous, and he's written my other screenplays. But you know, it's funny because you think, really, I started out thinking, well, I'm just going to do this little. I just want to do this as a small, you know, just a small production, keep it local. And that's really how I started out. And then I kept getting bigger with my ideas, and I ended up shooting in Philadelphia, and I was thinking, okay, well, you know, I'll shoot a trailer and we'll shoot it in Philly because that's where I wanted to shoot this originally. Then we ended up deciding, okay, well, probably a trailer is not going to be enough to, you know, really kind of give somebody an idea as to what this film's about. We need to do a short. So then I got started on this short. And here's the crazy thing. The screenplay wasn't even really done. So if there's a rule about doing everything wrong as a first-timer, that was me, is me.
Except I know where it's at now, so if you did everything wrong.
It's come a long, long way. It really has. And I'm blessed by that. I really am. It's still a matter, to be quite honest, it's still a matter of getting all the funding together. And, you know, that's every indie filmmaker's, you know, biggest issue is just where's the money going to come from. But anyway, so, you know, we just keep plugging away. I've got a great team of producers on this and some really good names. So, you know, we're all working at it and doing our best to get this budget together. Everybody's just sitting in the sidelines ready to go. So,
and I want to get your opinion on that. It seems like, at least in this area, the number one source of funding is either going to be Indiegogo or Kickstarter.
Oh, right.
So, what's your take on raising money for films, and which of those do you use? And talk to us about that.
I did use Kickstarter for Reunion, and I have to say I thought it was very successful. I did reach my goal, which was great. I don't know how effective something like that is for a very big budget project. And quite frankly, The Driver, which we're looking at right now, a $2 to $3 million budget on, that's not a big budget film, as you know. But it is to indie filmmakers, it's a big budget film. I don't know that it would be easy to go out and get $2 to $3 million, which is the reason I've never gone that route with this film. I think you really need to go after individual investors and that kind of thing. But I think for smaller projects, it's definitely a great way to go. And it's good because people that are connected to the film, that want to be a part of the film, they all want to do their part, you know. So even, you know, somebody giving $1 or $10, it all adds up. And so I definitely think they are great. And I would say to any indie filmmaker, go for it. Just put it out there, and you got to also, you got to use other methods too. Can't be just that. You have to really get on Facebook and, you know, do as much networking as you possibly can. But, you know, so definitely yes to the Indiegogo's and the Kickstarters.
And what's the top two concerns, I think, for indie filmmakers are budget and distribution.
Oh, right. So don't have anything without those.
So what's your, because a lot of films are getting made in DC, and a lot of people can make films, but can they get the money and can they get the film out there? So what's your advice on distribution?
Oh, distribution is hard. You know, I think it's so funny how everything is always, well, you've got to have a name. Mm-hmm. You got to have a name. If you've got a name, then, you know, distribution is not an issue. So getting a name in little local indie films is a really hard thing to do. So then you think, well, you know what? I don't have to have a name. If I have a really good story to tell, and the acting is good, and the cinematography is good, and, you know, there are no issues with my lighting and my sound and, you know, that kind of thing, then, yeah, I can put it out there. And I personally, for me, I haven't worried about it as much because I feel like I know that I'm going to go the film circuit route because I am a low-budget filmmaker. Mm-hmm. And so I'm thinking that's the greatest way to kind of start out with, you know, building up kind of a fan base for it and winning awards and getting the film some attention. And then people start to catch on and say, hey, you know, that little film won this and it won that. Maybe I'd like to see that. Then when you can approach a distribution company, then it might be a little easier for you if you can say, look, you know, I took it to this festival, and this festival, and these are the awards I picked up. So it has to be pretty good. You got to take a look at it. Currently, my two films are going to be distributed through a company called Level 4 Distribution. And what they do, basically, is they build an application and they put your products on iTunes. And the reason that I decided to go that route was because that's a worldwide distribution. Mm-hmm. So this film, The Driver, does have some names attached to it. I'll leave it up to you if you want to put their names out there. But is that a stepping stone? Are you going to leave us for Hollywood? Honestly, no. I really don't have that Hollywood desire. I love doing what I'm doing right here. You know, I know a lot of people do, and my hat's off to them for that. But I am really happy just kind of in my little circle. I feel really happy on the East Coast here. I'd like to branch out a little more, say, you know, into New York a little more than I am and that kind of thing, and Philly a little bit more. But I don't really have that desire to go, you know, that big. Definitely for me, this is a passion. It's a love. My poor family. Every weekend I'm doing something. And as an example, I got up this morning. I judged a pageant today, Miss Greater Springfield. And so I was gone all day long doing that, and it's, you know, it's kind of always something. But it's my passion, and, you know, I'm just kind of happy doing it right here. I don't have to be anywhere else, really. As long as I can make films, tell stories, and spread a good word, then I'm, you know, then I'm good with that. As far as The Driver, that's definitely a bigger project that we hope for a theatrical release with because of the names that we do have. And we're still looking at some even bigger names than what we already have in the film. Anybody can check it out. It's on IMDb, and they can see who's in it. But, you know, those names are Abe Vigoda and Vincent Pastore and David Preval and Tony Devon, who's pretty well-known New York actor as well. And Heather Locklear is somebody that we were able to attach to the project as well. So those are all pretty big names, but quite frankly, when you sit down with the investors and you really start to, you know, go at it, there's no telling what could really happen. You know, I'm hoping to be able to keep my place in the film. I don't know. At this point, I might get kicked off.
Oh, no, just show them some clips from Reunion. They'll keep you.
Oh, I hope so. I do hope so.
What would be your advice for somebody who's trying to get into the DC film? You know, we kind of take it for granted that we all know each other and everybody's kind of helping each other out.
Right.
What if you don't know all the players in DC? What would your advice be to them?
I always say the same thing, and I'll say it again, and that is that I think a great way for anyone to start out is to get connected with Brian Draganick. Everyone knows him.
Yes.
Everyone knows him. And he has a website, www.draganickconnects.com, and that's DRAGONUK. And that's the first place to go, I think, because it makes sense. You go in, you have to create a username and a password, you build a profile for yourself, get a really super good headshot, get a little resume together. If you don't have a resume, you got to start doing some community theater. You've got to do something so that you have something for a resume. And there's so much great stuff that's on Brian's site. I know actors who are making, you know, pretty good money just off of Brian's site because they're able to do all of these. There's a lot of local TV shows and things that are being produced. And anyway, so I think that's a great way to go. I think the other way to go is, you know, certainly, and I say this because I started out in theater, but I think getting involved in community theater is a great thing to do because you meet a lot of people. And what you'll find is that a lot of people that are in theater are not only in theater, they're in film as well. Mm-hmm. And all it takes is just meeting 2 or 3 people. And 2 or 3 people multiplies and gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And the next thing you know, you've got a whole handful of people that are all just like you, looking to do stuff, and you network. One thing leads to the other, and you're doing films, and that's the way it goes.
For the actors watching, what do you look for in a resume?
Well, you know, it's interesting. When I'm looking at a resume, first of all, one of the things that I always do is I look to see who the films are that the actor has been with. And of course, if it's around here, usually I can go, oh, I know him, him.
Mm-hmm, right.
Right. That's one thing. I think the other thing to do is, or that I do, is I look to see what kind of roles has this person been in. Are they leads? Are they supporting? Are they background work? You know, and that kind of helps me to figure out what their experience is and where I'm going to put them. Not to say that, you know, because there are times that I have definitely taken someone who's, you know, new and doesn't have a lot of experience and put them right out there, and they did a great job. So, but I guess, you know, that's pretty much it, because, you know, I'm only going to get so much information from a resume. Really, most of the information you're going to get is, you know, in that audition. So,
all right, this, like, tell the truth. Does the headshot count more than the resume? I know, it's a tough question.
Oh boy. This is, you know what, this is probably a very controversial subject right now because, as you know, everybody's starting to say, oh, headshots are passé. Everybody's asking for snapshots now. I'm kind of hardcore. I don't believe that. I do think that snapshots are necessary. Snapshots are really coming into use for a big studio film that's coming in. They've got tons of people to go through, and they don't want to see anything. Because they're going to use these people, the majority of them, as backgrounders, they just want to see what they look like, you know, all the time. And so I think that's the reason they ask for snapshots. But I believe that a good headshot is imperative. And that's the one thing I tell people constantly. Please invest your money in your headshot. Don't spend it, you know, to do all these other things. Really, your headshot is your calling card. And while I think it's important that your headshot should represent you and look like you, you know, I don't think you should go in Photoshop.
Right?
And that kind of thing. I do think that it's worth, you're getting a really good photographer. Do not get a wedding photographer. Don't go down to your friend. You know, invest the time because that's the first thing that someone sees of you. And that's the thing that makes the first impression. You know as well as I do that most of us, when we're casting, cast someone because we have this preconceived idea as who this person is. It's like, you know, when you write a screenplay, you know this character through and through. You know what they look like. And, you know, all it takes is just seeing that headshot and you're like, if this person has a good audition, this is the one. So, you know, definitely, I think, put money into your headshot.
So I have one last question, and I totally am publicly going to admit that I do this. But if I get headshots and resumes, I don't ask for the snapshot. I check them out on Facebook, because that's where their real snapshots are. Have you ever tried that? Do you do that?
Well, to be honest, I haven't done that. But here's the thing. Because I know that I'm going to meet them in person, if I'm considering them for a project of mine, then I know that I'm going to see them in person. And obviously, if somebody walks in the door and they're very, very different than their headshot, that's not an immediate no to me because, you know, quite frankly, it might have been all they had, you know, and I wouldn't want to pass up the opportunity, to have really good talent. But you know, that could maybe be an idea for the future.
Well, we are very much looking forward to following your progress with The Driver.
Thank you
and we
so
are
much.
very happy and proud for you. I mean, this is a really, really big step, and thank you for not bailing out on us and moving to Hollywood.
No. But thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate IndieCapitol. Thank you so much for helping us indie filmmakers.
And that's what we're here to do. For IndieCapitol, I'm Pamela Nash, and this has been Connie Lamothe.